This is USA News Hub, United States, the heart of American sports. Subscribe for power, passion, and champions. The world's two best players are dominating Melbourne. They look unstoppable. They look destined to meet again in another Grand Slam final. But here's the twist. Even if Jannik wins the Australian Open, even if Carlos Alcaraz loses early, even if everything goes right for the defending champion, Jannik still cannot regain the world #1 ranking. Oh, how is that possible? Let's break down why the ATP rankings are already decided, before the tournament is even finished. Welcome back to the channel, tennis fans. If you love Grand Slams, rankings drama, and the chess match behind the ATP system, you're in the right place. The 2026 Australian Open is already delivering elite-level tennis, and at the center of it all are two names that define the modern era of men's tennis: Carlos Alcaraz and Jannik Sinner. They are the top two players in the world. They are the overwhelming favorites for the title. And many fans assumed Melbourne would decide the world #1 ranking. But here's the reality. Backhand index pointing right, the world #1 ranking is not up for grabs at the Australian Open. And today, we're going to explain, clearly, simply, and completely, why Jannik cannot overtake Carlos Alcaraz, no matter what happens on court. Yellow square opening round dominance. No signs of weakness. Both players opened their Australian Open campaigns in dominant fashion. Spain: Carlos Alcaraz, World NO. 1. Alcaraz started his tournament on opening day Sunday, facing home favorite Adam Walton. Despite the crowd support behind Walton, Alcaraz remained composed, controlled, and clinical. Scoreline: 6-3. 7-6, 2. 6-2. No panic. No drama. Just ruthless efficiency. Italy: Jannik World No. 2 and defending champion. Sinner's start was even shorter. The Italian was on court for just 67 minutes, leading 6-2, 6-1 when opponent Hugo Gaston was forced to retire. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't emotional. It was business. And that's exactly why many fans believed Sinner could reclaim the #1 ranking right here in Melbourne. But numbers tell a different story. Red square the illusion. Why fans expected a rankings battle? Let's be honest, on the surface, it makes sense. Sinner is the defending champion. Alcaraz is the world #1. Both are expected to go deep. A final between them feels inevitable. Last year's US Open final did decide the world #1 ranking. So naturally, fans assumed history would repeat itself. But ATP rankings don't work on emotion. They work on math. And mathematically, Sinner is locked out. Blue square current ATP rankings snapshot. Here's how the ATP rankings look right now. During the Australian Open, world #1, Carlos Alcaraz, 12,050 points. World #2, Jannik 11,500 points. The gap. Backhand index pointing right, 550 points. Now, 550 points might not sound huge, especially when the gap between #2 and #3, Alexander Zverev, is over 6,000 points. But timing matters. And at this tournament, timing is everything. Yellow square why the Australian Open does not change the top. Here's the key reason why nothing changes at #1 in Melbourne. Backhand index pointing right, neither Alcaraz nor Sinner played any tournaments before the Australian Open in 2026. That means no points gained. No points lost. No ranking movement. Both players entered Melbourne with fixed totals. And once the tournament started, the ranking scenario was already locked. Red square the defending champion problem. This is where things get crucial, and where many fans get confused. Jannik won the Australian Open last year. That means he earned backhand index pointing right 2,000 ranking points in Melbourne in 2025. Those points are now defending points, and ATP ranking terms, defending points are not a bonus. They're a burden. Because if you win again, you keep the points. If you do worse, you lose points. There is no way to gain more than 2,000 points at a Grand Slam, so Sinner's best possible scenario is simply maintaining his total. Blue square best case scenario for Sinner. Let's imagine absolute perfection for Jannik Sinner. He wins every match. He defends his title. He wins the Australian Open again. What happens? Backhand index pointing right, he earns 2,000 points. Backhand index pointing right, but he also loses 2,000 points from last year's result. Heavy checkmark, his ranking total stays at 11,500 points. No increase. No leap. No chance to overtake. Red square, what about Alcaraz? This is the separation. Carlos Alcaraz did not win the Australian Open last year, so he is defending far fewer points. Any deep run equals net point gain. Even an early loss does not create enough drop. This is why Alcaraz is mathematically secure. Even if Alcaraz loses in the semifinals, or even in the quarterfinals, Sinner cannot gain enough points to pass him. Yellow square, why a final changes nothing. Let's address the biggest question fans are asking. What if Sinner beats Alcaraz in the final? Answer. Backhand index pointing right still doesn't matter for rankings. Why? Because rankings are not based on head-to-head. They're based on rolling 52 week points. Even a Grand Slam final victory improves legacy, boosts confidence, wins the trophy, but does not change number one. Blue square, the locked status of no one. This is why analysts say backhand index pointing right Carlos Alcaraz is guaranteed to remain world number one after the Australian Open. Not likely. Not probable. Guaranteed. And in fact, Alcaraz could extend his lead, increase the margin, solidify his hold on the season, while Sinner is simply trying not to lose ground. Red square, why this is not bad news for Sinner. At first glance, this feels unfair. But strategically, this is actually good news for Jannik Sinner. Why? Because he plays without ranking pressure. He focuses purely on defending the title. He controls his own performance. He knows the chase resumes after Melbourne. The rankings race is a marathon, not a sprint. Yellow square, what comes next in the no one battle? The real fight for world number one resumes after the Australian Open. That's where mandatory events, Masters tournaments, title defenses, scheduling decisions start to matter. If Sinner wants to reclaim number one, he must outperform Alcaraz consistently. He must capitalize where Alcaraz defends points. And he must stay healthy. Melbourne is not the battlefield. The season is. Green square, Alcaraz versus Sinner, still the sport's centerpiece. Even without rankings on the line, one thing remains true. Backhand index pointing right Carlos Alcaraz versus Jannik Sinner is the rivalry of men's tennis, elite level. Respectful, tactical, athletic, global appeal. A fourth straight Grand Slam final would surprise no one, and when they meet, history is always made, ranking or not. So to answer the question clearly and completely, crossmark Jannik Sinner cannot regain the world number one ranking at the Australian Open. Crossmark even by winning the tournament. Crossmark even by beating Carlos Alcaraz, because heavy check mark, he is defending maximum points. Heavy check mark, he cannot increase his total. Heavy check mark, Alcaraz's lead is protected by math. The rankings race continues, just not in Melbourne. If this breakdown helped you understand the ATP rankings better, smash that like button, subscribe for more tennis coverage, and comment below. Backhand index pointing right, who finishes 2026 as world number one, Alcaraz or Sinner? Make sure you subscribe to USA News Hub United States. More breaking news, more powerful stories, more champions coming your way. See you soon.